Chapter 2, Shadows in the Pines. Red Valley Foothills, Georgia, April 3rd, 1875, late afternoon. The sun pressed hot across Matthew Finn's back as he guided Juniper through the narrow, twisting ridge trails east of Boone's farm. Sweat stung his eyes, mixing with the dust and red clay. The Vandross ambush earlier in the day had left a gnawing tension in his chest, a reminder that the frontier didn't forgive mistakes or mercy. But the shadow looming in the tree line that morning, watching him silently, brought Matthew's unease to a new level. Jonah Pike. He had thought that name buried under snow in Tennessee, left behind when he had fled Pike's gang, but Pike's eyes, glinting from the pine shadows, reminded him that the past had a long memory, and Pike never forgave. The forest whispers. The pines seemed to close in around Matthew, dense and suffocating. Needles whispered, branches scratched against his coat, and the faint sound of a creek running over rocks mingled with the distant cry of a crow. Every step Juniper took pressed into the soft red clay with a muffled crunch. Matthew's eyes flicked through the shadows, hand hovering near his revolver. He knew Pike wouldn't confront him openly. He was a predator, patient and calculating, the kind that killed without raising his voice. Matthew's muscles tensed, ready for the inevitable.
Tennessee?
Winter 1873, snow pressed hard against Matthew's coat, turning every movement into a struggle. He remembered the rail convoy, a small train carrying payroll for surveyors cutting through the mountains. Pike had planned it, and Matthew had followed because he had no choice. 3 guards inside, 2 outside, Pike had said, voice calm, deadly. Quiet like boys. Matthew hesitated. It's just rail workers. We don't need to hurt them. Pike's eyes darkened. You've got too much sense for your own good, Finn. Chaos erupted. Pike's men fired indiscriminately. A Cherokee worker stumbled on the ice, arms outstretched, pleading. Matthew fired over Pike's shoulder, aiming to scare, not kill. But Pike didn't care. The bullet tore through the man's chest, snow turning crimson. Matthew froze. The cold, the blood, the laughter of Pike's gang. It seared into his mind. You think you're better than us? Pike snarled. Matthew mounted Juniper and rode into the night. He left Pike and his gang behind. That night had marked the beginning of his life on the run.
Back to the present!
Matthew shook the memory from his mind. The pines thickened, shadows deepening to black. The faint smell of smoke teased the edge of his senses. He stopped at a clearing, letting Juniper graze. His hand rested on his revolver, eyes scanning the forest. A twig snapped. A voice hissed from the shadows. Matthew Finn. Matthew's heart hammered. He didn't move, didn't draw, waiting. Then Pike stepped into the clearing. Black coat, rifle slung, hat low. A smirk tugged at his lips. Thought you could run and hide, boy? Pike said. Matthew didn't answer. He simply watched. You left a man to die in Tennessee, Pike continued. A Cherokee. Do you think can just walk away from that? Matthew's fingers twitched at the revolver. I owe you nothing. Pike stepped closer. We'll see about that. Ahash! The first strike. Suddenly, a man leaped from the left, swinging a club. Pike's signal. Matthew rolled behind a tree, narrowly avoiding the blow. More men emerged from the shadows, 2 with knives, 1 with a Colt. Matthew's revolver barked repeatedly. 1 man dropped, another fell screaming, the 3rd scrambled behind a stump. Pine needles and splintered bark flew with every shot. Pike remained, moving like a ghost. He struck Matthew's shoulder with the butt of his rifle. Pain exploded. Matthew rolled, swung his rifle, catching Pike across the forearm. Pike's eyes blazed with fury. You always had too much sense for your own good, Pike said, which makes you predictable. Matthew growled. You don't scare me. Ah! The fight spiraled. Matthew ducked, rolled, fired, and struck. Pike moved with the lethal grace of a man who had killed more than he could count. Each step was calculated, each swing precise. Matthew's coat was shredded, hands bleeding, sweat and dirt covering his face. Branches tore at his arms and the forest itself seemed to conspire against him. Pike's voice echoed, taunting. You leave me no choice, Pike said, then lunged with a knife. Matthew barely blocked, sparks of steel on steel. Juniper whinnied, stomping nervously. Matthew ducked under a low branch, rolled and fired. Pike's smirk faltered. The men behind him, groaning in the snow, were no longer a threat. One by one they had fallen. Matthew knew he couldn't hold Pike forever. He needed to survive.
The escape.
He bolted toward a ridge overlooking the swamp, Juniper struggling to keep pace. Pike laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. Matthew fired one last warning shot, hitting a nearby tree. He galloped into the mist curling above the swamp, heart hammering, lungs burning. The smell of wet earth and pine filled his senses. Pike's voice echoed from the tree line. "Enjoy it while it lasts, Finn. I'll find you." Matthew clenched his jaw. He had survived worse, but Pike's return marked the beginning of something far more dangerous.
Aftermath.
Matthew collapsed near the swamp's edge, hands bloodied from thorns and scrapes. He looked at the fog over the water, the twisted reflection of Juniper beside him. He thought of Boone, Maya, the valley below, innocent soon caught in the crossfire of men like Pike. He clenched his fists, making a silent vow. He would not let Pike's shadow stretch across Georgia without resistance. A single thought whispered in his mind. This is the way the Black Crows begin. This is the man I will become.
End of chapter 2.